I tend to think of myself as a more privileged sex worker. I don't have to do sex work. Like, I do have my law degree. I could be doing something. Like, when I graduated college, I had a tech job, and I was making $60K right out of college. So there's definitely a lot of things that I could be doing. And so I think the worry that a lot of OnlyFans content creators, where that is their primary source of income, I didn't have that in the same way. My name is Tiera Brown. I am from Denver, Colorado. OnlyFans is an internet content subscription site. Anyone that creates any kind of content, they can set up an OnlyFans account, and you have what are called fans, and they're people that they can either subscribe for free, or you can set a monthly price for them to subscribe to your content, or they have a pay-per-view option where you can release content and you can charge a certain price for that specific piece of content. I joined OnlyFans right in the middle of the pandemic because my primary place of business, which was the strip club, was closed. I was in law school before I got on OnlyFans, and I would say actually it was more like a simultaneous. I was in law school and then also on OnlyFans. I recently graduated law school, but during that time I've held like different kind of legal related jobs. So the kind of content that I produce on OnlyFans is I'd like to call it like a niche market type of thing, because I do plant content. So that's anything from like DIYs on how to build an indoor garden, pictures of all my plants, caretaking tips, plant hauls, like stuff that a lot of people might see on YouTube. I actually have that on my OnlyFans. And then I also have incorporated that into more of like the sex work side with, softcore type of pictures. So Hoda Culture is my brand. One day, I made a joke on Twitter. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make an OnlyFans, but it's gonna be me repotting and propagating my plants. So taking these plants, putting them in different potters, or cutting their leaves and trying to grow more plants. But I'm gonna do it on OnlyFans, and I'm gonna put a little sexy twist to it. And everyone kept all of my Twitter followers and people were like, you should do it. I would totally subscribe. So I was getting requests to make an OnlyFans before I even had an OnlyFans. And then just one day I'm like, I could actually really do it. Some common misconceptions about sex workers generally, and even sex workers that are on OnlyFans. One would be that we don't pay our taxes. So that's something people are like, oh, it's not a real job because you guys don't pay taxes. We do. OnlyFans has made it even simpler in that they'll report that you're a content creator, and so they're expecting to see whatever income that you've made from OnlyFans when you file your taxes. So that's one common misconception. I think another common misconception is that they think that everyone does it because we don't have a choice. And that's probably one of the most detrimental viewpoints on it, because we're not a monolith as sex workers. There's women and men that have to do it because that's how they survive. And then there are those of us that do it by choice. I'm in the latter category. There's no, we're not all there because we're forced to be there. I've heard things like we're fatherless, women that post certain kind of content on the internet. We don't have fathers. That's definitely not true either. I would say there's definitely negatives for being on OnlyFans. One of those right away is you're putting, for at least the sex workers, you're putting sexual content out there for the world to see. And once it's out there, it's out there. And there was a period in time, and it still happens to this day, where people will go and they'll illegally steal your content. So, or they'll, record it and then put it on sites like Reddit. So now, what you were previously having people pay for, it's being distributed freely on Reddit, on Twitter, and stuff like that. I would say you also open up yourself for just general attacks from people you don't know, or even family members, friends that don't understand sex work and that don't agree with it. So they're projecting, their morality and their ethics on what you do, so it can cause conflict in that way. I did have some hesitations about my body being posted like sexually on OnlyFans when I first started. And that's even with me having worked at the strip club before I went to OnlyFans. Because at least in my view, like in the strip club, I see everyone that sees, you know, me. So on OnlyFans, you don't have that same kind of control because anybody can subscribe to your channel or your page, and you don't know, oftentimes, like they don't have to put their real names. A lot of times the users, it'll be a mix of letters and numbers. It'll be like U56789. You don't know who that is. So my love for plants started, it was another COVID thing. So I will say it was twofold. I went through a very traumatic like mental health experience where I ended up being like hospitalized. I almost lost my life. And it was like a combination of like self-harm, and I have several different like mental health diagnoses, borderline personality, bipolar, and like the culmination of everything in my life at that point is what ended me in the hospital. When I got out the hospital, I had to do an inpatient program before I was able to go back home. I had to show that I was like safe to myself, and you know, I could take care of my son. So while I was in that inpatient program, like they have you doing different classes all day, meeting with a bunch of different therapists, and the one thing that kept coming up was like I had no hobbies. Like I was someone, like I've been working since I was in high school, and usually it's 2-3 I always have my hands in something. It was always to get to like a higher place educationally or career-wise. It wasn't something that I necessarily enjoyed doing. So they would always, like when I was inpatient, they'd say, well, what are your hobbies? Like if you feel yourself going into crisis, what can you do to bring yourself down a little bit and to stabilize your moods? And I didn't have a thing at that point. So my homework when I was released eventually was to find that thing. And ironically, I was in an abusive relationship as well at the time, that like right before I was hospitalized. And that boyfriend actually bought me my first plant. Like when I got back home, I started like really being purposeful about how I was taking care of it. If I was having a bad day, I'm gonna go buy a plant. But then it also came the part where you take care of them. And I noticed that when my mental health was not, like when I was more on like a depression and my mental health was not as good, my plants, you could tell, because they weren't being watered and some of them died. And because if you're not getting out of bed, you're definitely not thinking about watering your plants or, you know, doing whatever else you need in terms of maintenance. There is an indoor houseplant movement that's growing in the Black community, and I think that a lot of it does have to do with just mental health. Like when COVID first started, we also had, like, they called it the George Floyd Summers, where people were uprising all across the country. I think with the plants, that gives people, similar to like what I was saying, an opportunity for them to really just engage in something they really like to do. Plants can't discriminate against you. You know, you want to be able to be in a place, and like I think they provide a lot of, when you talk about wellness, like you're watering your plants, you're watering, you know, that's a way like you water yourself, you treat yourself good, you're treating your plants good. I do think that Black people are just being more intentional about how they spend their time and making sure that we are our best selves, because I think we all know at this point we can't leave it up to anybody else to do that but us. So I think plants just helps us get to that point.